Oh man, I wanted to talk about this Splinter Cell news because I mean, like, this is spicy meat the balls. So, Video Games Chronicle, the site who they report on stuff a lot. They say unnamed sources a lot, but I tend to trust a lot of their scoops. I think they've been doing a pretty good job. They have reported that after a decade, we're getting a Splinter Cell game. I'm going to quote the article. According to development sources who told us that the title has been put into production as a means of winning back fans frustrated by recent efforts to revive the franchise in the mobile and VR spaces. It's not clear which studios are working on the project, though two people with knowledge of Ubisoft's plans suggested the new Splinter Cell is being led by a studio outside of its traditional Montreal base. This is in an early phase of production, the sources said, but there's a small chance it could be announced next year. So, right off the bat, because everybody's going to comment it, everybody thinks they're a comedic genius or like they know everything. Yeah, there's a big chance that this could just play like Far Cry and Watch Dogs, and it could have loot boxes or microtransactions and blah, 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 all of that. It's likely that Ubisoft can mess this up. I want to like acknowledge the negative right off the bat. I have a lot of ideas where this could go and where I would like to see it go, but there is a likelihood that this could be a bummer. So I am considering this mark me down as skeptical for now. But I have talked about this a little bit in the past. I'm going to link somewhere my previous video on why I do think the games do need to come back. I kind of break down why I love all the original games. I love them. They're a huge part of my life. They're like one of my favorite things ever. I mean, like, well, besides Star Wars and RoboCop and Metal Gear Solid and The Mummy and everything. So, but like, it's up there, okay? So I'm just it's a lot of emotions, like, because I've seen a little bit of like a potential resurgence in this stuff with the fact that there is going to be the Netflix animated show that is in the works. The fact that Ubisoft is doing this VR project. I thought they were trying to keep that brand going along in some way, but now a game is interesting. The thing that gives me pause, not to go back to like the skepticism part, but it's the part of the article that says apparently it's a means of winning back fans frustrated. I don't think that's always the best thing to just people please. You know what I mean? Like if they have to, like I feel like if the studio has to go, all right, we'll make one. Like I don't think that's the best headspace. I'd rather be like, all right, we got a cool new idea. Let's do it. Let's go for it. You know? But there's a lot of talk, and I think it's a high possibility that this is going to be a different Splinter Cell game. I think. And I will eat my shoe. I would be so happy. But if we just get a regular old traditional third-person stealth game with hardcore stealth elements, I just don't see it happening. That being said, we could get something like Blacklist again, which is a little bit of a compromise, a little bit of like a step forward, trying new things. They already like shook up the Splinter Cell formula. And for me as a Splinter Cell fan, I was pretty happy with Blacklist. I liked a lot of Blacklist. Obviously, I really, really missed Michael Ironside, and it was amazing how much that affected my enjoyment of things. But besides that, I thought it played pretty well, and I was worried. I'm like, oh, they're adding all these elements. The maps are bigger. You can customize your loadouts more. Weird stuff. But I turned out satisfied. So the way I'm looking at it is that at the very least, they have proven that they can change and tweak the formula into like a newer thing, and it still be kind of good. But my question is, like, can they do that again? And in the last video, shout out to a lot of you guys in my comments. A lot of you guys were suggesting, like, what if it's another game? But, you know, Michael Ironside and really Sam Fisher are very old now. So what if the next game is Sam Fisher training someone else and Sam Fisher is like the mentor character? I would say maybe. Sure. Fine, let's try it. But like I said in the previous video, a lot of companies have been having a really hard time coming up with compelling new characters. And really in a lot of things, in movies and games, when it's like the old generation shepherding in the new characters, you can't help but just like those old characters outshine anything new. It's hard to make something new and compelling and interesting. I think that a good example is something like God of War with Atreus. I think with this next game, God of War Ragnarok, I think they're really going to sell building him up as an interesting character, an actual thing to stand next to Kratos that isn't just the kid. So with Ubisoft, they could go that way, but if you think about it, like, and I said it last time, they have a character. Sam Fisher is iconic from his look to the whole thing, to his voice acting, they got something. So they should run with it. Like, I don't know what they could do, man. What if they literally just rebooted it and it's just like, hey, mid-40s Sam Fisher, voiced by Michael Ironside, let's do it. I don't know. Can you see I'm just like brain diarrheaing here? The other thing I definitely want to point out is Spies versus Mercs. So this is where I think Ubisoft smells money, because their recent track record, they've really proven to put out games and stick with them. For Honor still is a game. There's some community. Rainbow Six Siege has lasted for years, and as much as I don't play it, it's really impressive what they have done. You know, they try to do these things with these games. They try and build esports. They try and build ongoing things about them. So I would say it's safe to believe that if there is a Spies versus Mercs thing here, it's going to be very live servicey, updated, you know, esports element, battle passes, all that shit. And you know what? Whatever. That's the modern era of multiplayer. I've kind of like bounced off of that. But shout out to, there are 2 developers out there, very small, working on games inspired by Spies versus Mercs, making basically their own thing since Ubisoft hasn't done it. So love to see that, love to support that. But with this, like with the whole Splinter Cell thing, I'm almost thinking, like, especially considering the report suggests that it's not like maybe the main big Montreal thing, what if they go smaller? Hear me out on this one. Like, what if they do just give money to a smaller studio and say, go ahead, like you do it now, because we don't care about it. So here's a small budget, you're passionate, go. I would almost rather that, like a smaller budget thing with a passionate team, than a big, massive, like everybody, all hands on deck, big, expensive, crazy project. Because with that is going to come probably the pressure to make a lot more money, and then with that is going to come all the stuff we maybe don't want to see in a Splinter Cell game. So other big studios have done this in the past, where they've finally brought back a game and they've just kind of like, you know, given it to a smaller studio and said, all right, you guys work on it. I mean, even right now, what EA is doing with Dead Space, like they're bringing back Dead Space and they gave it to Motive. They're a smaller team. They said, here you go. People like that. Do it again. It's a tough situation to be in. It's a tricky spot. I don't really envy anyone in this situation. Ubisoft especially, because they still have organizational and leadership things that they're still going through, just as Activision Blizzard is. So it's tumultuous in a lot of ways, from people working from home to all the scandal stuff. Let's see what happens here. I think that's where I follow. Bottom line, I think if this has to be made, give it to a smaller, passionate team ready to cut their teeth and make something cool. I know that's easier said than done. I'm literally just a guy in a chair, but that's what I'm thinking. I just wanted to turn on the camera and yap about this for a second, because wow. Thank you guys for sending me the links, the news. I saw it as soon as it broke, because I'm just online all day, but thank you for sending me that. I definitely want to know what you're thinking about this, like ideal situation, pie in the sky. If you can get anything you want from a Ubisoft made Splinter Cell game, what exactly do you want? Now, do that. Do the fantasy version and give me the realistic version. Let me know what you think, though. If you like what I'm doing here, I'm just talking about stuff I love, click the like button. It helps me out, legitimately. Thank you. But I'm Jake Baldino. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, because video games. Pizza's on with me.